Hey, hello everybody. Welcome back to 74 once more. Part 1 of interview with Tyler Spurgeon coming up really soon. So sit back, relax, grab a coffee, grab a beer, and let's get this thing going. 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, everybody. This is Dieter Kalt. I'm the host of the podcast 74 Once More. Here with a really interesting interview partner, a good old friend of mine, Canadian professional hockey player born in Edmonton, Alberta. A professional hockey player for 13 years now. He's 34 years old. He's playing in the Professional Hockey League in Austria at the moment. Welcome, Tyler Spurgeon. Welcome to my show. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Dieter.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a couple of weeks, and I have been introducing you on social media a little bit. And I was really excited to have you as a guest on my list, because there's so many things that I learned from you when I played with you. I coached you, and I followed your career for 8-9 years now. I would love to call you a friend. I hope you see it the same way. You're a role model for me, and a lot of people in my audience, everybody can really learn from you who is in professional sports, learn about leadership, learn about attitude, learn about how to overcome resilience, not resilience, but the resistance is the right word, how to overcome self-doubt. I want to dig in really deep what's behind the facade of being a tough professional hockey player. So I know you're tough, you're really tough to play against, but at the same time, I know what kind of nice person you are in your private life. And so thank you for taking the time. And I want to jump right in. Growing up in Edmonton, it's a little bit comparable on a smaller scale to my hometown here in Klagenfurt in Austria, where hockey is king. Yeah. I would say hockey in Edmonton, Canada is king too. So how does it feel growing up there and wanting to be a hockey player?
Well, I think I grew up at a real special time when the Oilers dynasty was at its top and Wayne Gretzky was here and they were winning Stanley Cups. And every kid in Canada already wants to be a National Hockey League player and play hockey professionally. And for me to see the Oilers and see the buzzer on the team, and like you said, it's comparable in its own way to how things are in Klagenfurt there. It's the talk of the town in the winter, and everybody is so passionate about it. So to have that opportunity, and my parents really loved hockey. My grandfathers loved hockey. So I was introduced at a very early age, and it was something that I grew to love quickly.
So, but I guess there was a lot of competition as well from early age on. How was that? How does it work? How does this hockey system work in Edmonton?
So growing up in minor hockey here, it's just, I like to think I'm from the old school where you just signed up, your parents put you out on the ice, and there's stories of me crying the whole first session I was out there, didn't know what I was doing, didn't want to go back, but I did and found my way. So you're playing all the way from 5 years old until say 15, 16, and that's when you have the opportunity to maybe move to the Western Hockey League and Canadian Junior and things like that. So yeah, it's very competitive, but honestly, I don't feel that I saw that competitiveness until I hit around 14, 15. Early on, it was just all about playing with your friends, guys you went to school with, and the guys you used to play road hockey. Now you're on teams to play ice hockey. And it really was just a love that grew. And I was so fortunate that my parents, they were very supportive of myself and my brother to play. And it had nothing to do about, this is what we do in Canada. It was up to me, and it was something that I loved.
So you were lucky to have this kind of support from your family. Do you see a little jump to today? Because I think it changed in Europe for sure, the kind of a mentality towards junior sports or sports for kids. Do you see this kind of change in Canada as well, that people are thinking about professional contracts and big careers right away, where you just said as a kid, you didn't care about this kind of stuff until you were like 13, 14. Do you think that changed?
Oh, it definitely has. I know, over the last 10 years, I've volunteered and helped with different minor hockey league teams of kids even in the age of 9 and 10 years old. And parents are already asking about, professional hockey and opportunity, and they're comparing their children at that age and thinking, this could be a chance for us to have our son play professionally. And it's just, to me, it's crazy and it's hard to fathom, because I look back to when I was 8 and 9 years old, and, a lot of the players that were the best players at that time, as you grow and, there's schooling, girls, parties, all these different influences in life come, guys that were the best at that age weren't always the best later on. And like I said, hockey is such a competitive sport that you have to have that passion for the game first off. Otherwise, you're not going to make it through the hardships that come your way when you're playing. So I think there's not enough promotion of, enjoying the game and letting children and kids make the decisions when they're going to play, when they're going to practice and things like that, and let them organically kind of grow into the game. Whereas now you have analytics is such a big thing in hockey. You have private coaches for children from the ages of 7 to 12. And it's really changed from when I grew up. That's for sure.
I feel the same way, and I'm going off topic here right away. I'm letting go of all the questions that I have prepared for you, because that's something I'm really interested in, and you seem to feel the same way. You're 10 years younger than I am. When I look back, growing up in Austria, we did all sports. It was soccer, it was basketball, it was tennis, it was climbing trees, it was running, it was everything, and then it was hockey in the winter, and it was a pond hockey in the winter where I grew up. And we have been discussing, because I was responsible for talent development, the junior system in my club where I was working for some years, as you know, but my audience probably doesn't know. That's why I say it again. But we've been discussing this with the coaches, how much practice, how many hours a week for 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12, 13, 14, because the others are doing so much and so many hours, and you're going to lose, we want to make them better. How do we get the guys to become professional? All this kind of talks we had for hours and hours. And when I was thinking back, when I was practicing, we did not practice as much. I don't even have memory so much practicing as a kid with the club. But I remember all I did all day was shooting pucks, shooting balls, and skating and running at home. Yeah. So there's never enough practice, but not organized. And that's the biggest difference. I had parents sitting in my office being proud, telling me that, my 10-year-old son, he had 50 hours of private practice in June and July before we start skating in August. I'm like, what? What are you guys thinking? Do you see the same thing? I think that's a dangerous development. Yeah,
I think that's how things are now in Canada. And I think that's what people think it takes to make it. But I'm still a firm believer in, like you said, hitting the pond and playing outdoor hockey. We, at 10 to 12 years old, we maybe practiced 3 times a week, but we were on the ice probably every day by choice, going to the outdoor rinks here in Canada where it's minus 20, minus 30. And we'd be out there for 2-3 hours, even on the 3 days that we practiced. But that was a choice. It was never something where, our parents were hauling us out of bed at 6 a.m. to get a private skate before we practiced with our team after school. And my brother and I talk about that, on a weekly basis when you start to hear these stories, and we say, we don't think we would still be playing or have enjoyed it as much had that been our situation. And there's no doubt that the game has grown and these kids are incredibly skilled. They're better skaters than we were at that age. But then you see these kids enter the NHL, and yes, they're great, but there's veterans there that didn't do things that way because there wasn't that opportunity 10 years ago to have that level of development, and they're still top players as well. So there has to be, kind of a sweet spot for the work, the passion, the commitment, and then where your skill level lands you. So I think a lot of it is just through consistent practice, but with purpose too.
And that's your family situation is really interesting in that regard too. You mentioned your brother. You were discussing, or you're still discussing with him. He's a couple of years younger than you are. He's a defenseman, he's a right-handed shot. You are a centerman. You're a left-handed shot. and he has been playing for the Minnesota Wild for the past 6, 7, 8 years, something like this.
Yeah, it's 7, I think, 7 or 8.
So I'm really interested in that too. Were you guys, was a lot of competition between you guys growing up, or how did that work?
Yeah, I think anything when it comes to sports, we both love to win. So there's a lot of fists throwing, sticks throwing, and fights. But at the same time, we were best friends growing up. And that's a perfect example of two people having different personalities and taking different paths to get to a level of success. I would look at Jared and I would say he was a smaller player growing up. He was always a very talented player, but he wasn't highly touted through his, I guess, early teens, so 10 to 15, but he had some attention. And when he went to the Western Hockey League, he kind of had to fight for every little bit of ice time he had. He got drafted and wasn't signed by the New York Islanders at first. So he was almost at a crossroads of, do I go to school now or what do I do? And he ended up getting a tryout with Minnesota. And by Christmas that year, he was in the National Hockey League. And to see that kind of rise of somebody that wasn't from day one a guy that everybody was saying this kid will be in the NHL was pretty impressive. And then I look at myself, and in those teen years, I would say there was maybe a little more buzz about myself. I was lucky to be a bigger kid at that time, and there was quite a bit of attention. I got drafted in the first round to the Western Hockey League and got opportunity right away and signed my first pro contract with the team that drafted me. Things that you look at as success at the time, but Jared could have been discouraged by not having those opportunities, but he still made it to the place he wanted to go to. And, those are just kind of, I would say, the noteworthy points and struggles that he had to go through. But along the way, he had injuries. I would say I was more of a type A, go to the gym every day, shoot 300, 400 pucks, and Jared would shoot 100 pucks. And he had more interests outside at the time. Computers were coming up and things like that, and he enjoyed studying on them and doing things with that. So I would say I probably overall put in more hours than Jared, but at the same time, he still acquired a high level of skill by, finding the passion when he had time to do it. And, you see where he is now. He's had an incredible career to start, and I'm sure it's going to carry on that way.
But that's the fine line that you realize after a long or within a long career. If you're a guy like yourself, you're obviously putting a lot of thought in what you're doing. You have a lot of experience already. You're not old by any means, but in sports years, you have some kind of experience. You have a couple fights under your belt already, and you have been really successful growing up as a player. You've been selected to all-star teams really young. You've been collecting 2 West Coast Hockey League championship titles. You won the Memorial Cup. You won a championship in Austria, and you've been a captain on your teams, especially the last 4 years straight in Austria and Innsbruck as an import player in a foreign country. It's not usual. So like you said, I understand the kind of buzz that was about you, but the way I saw you was not about talent as we usually talk about talent, talking about the unbelievable highlight plays and the soft hands or the unbelievable dribblings in soccer, for example. You had a different kind of talent. What's your biggest talent? What do you think?
I think my biggest talent is just straight up hard work. Being in love with the game of hockey, it was something that I always enjoyed doing. So, it was fun for me to put in those hours and work at the game. That's all I really wanted to do. And, I think when you have a level of work ethic, that translates into, your preparation coming into games, the things you look to learn about the game, the players around you, how you, take notice of things that they're doing that's different than maybe what you're doing, and you try to learn from it. You just have this yearning for learning that you want to just take advantage of everything around you. And I think, as somebody who hasn't had the top end skill, I wouldn't say that you're very aware of these other players and what they're doing to enhance their skills or I'm lucky to have a friend named Tyler Ennis, who's probably one of the smoothest skaters, softest hands. And he's a guy that, I just watch, and you have to be accepting of other people's style of play, and you can kind of take little pieces from everybody. So yeah, no, I'd say that hard work and just wanting to study the game has been the two assets that have really helped me along the way.
How much help did you get growing up learning? Did you learn only from your own experience? How important were coaches during that path?
Yeah, I was really fortunate. My dad, he loved hockey. He'd only played to the junior level, but at the time there were starting to be like stick handling videos or coaching sessions and things like that coming out. So he would just give us little tips within the practices we were at. He was always an assistant coach for our teams. He was a head coach for Jared's team. And, the shooting and little things like that, he was always looking to help us. And then at a young age, about 12 years old, I was lucky to play for Lee Foglin, who was the captain of the Edmonton Oilers before Wayne Gretzky, and he had won 2 Stanley Cups there. And I was playing with his son. So to have that kind of influence, and he was just a hard-working, hard-nosed defenseman and really valued hard work over anything. You could be super talented, score 3 or 4 goals, but if you weren't a good person, a good teammate, and really putting everything you had into it, that wasn't good enough for him. And I think when you're working hard and you see that you're rewarded with ice time and then success starts to come, then that's kind of what fueled me, because I've had other professional players even ask me, just say, like, how do you work so hard? Like, where did you learn to work so hard? And it just kind of came from the feeling that I had and just the accomplishment you feel by working hard in a practice or when you go downstairs to practice your shot or whatever. And that's what fueled me.
It's interesting you say that, because like I said in my intro, you are one of the fittest players that I have played with during my career. The pride you take in preparation, thinking about everything, how you can be prepared. It was very inspiring. I felt the same way when I was playing. Talent only gets you that far, and there is sweet hands everywhere, and there's guys that can do things that other guys can't do. But if you look at what you can actually reach by just putting in the work, following a plan, and not taking shortcuts, you can see guys making pretty good careers everywhere in doing that. And I'm not saying I was a hardworking guy like yourself. That's how I saw myself. And where's the excuse of not putting in the work? What kind of excuse? I was asking the young players. Okay, what can you influence really? What can you influence? What doesn't need any talent? Or maybe that's the biggest talent of them all. It's just having the discipline and putting in the work.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think for me, every night I go to sleep, or every time I would come off the ice or leave the gym, I wanted to be able to be free in my mind and know that I put everything I could into the game. And that was the same when it came to nutrition and taking care of yourself and getting treatment. And, if it took a little more time at certain points in my career to kind of maximize the abilities that I had, that was very important for me. And, I think hockey is a great microcosm for life and the lessons that you learn and this discipline and hard work and valuing people and learning to work with people and for people. That it's something that can translate into all areas of your life.
Thank you very much for listening to part 1 of the interview with Tyler Spurgeon. Part 2 coming up really soon, so stay tuned. And in the meanwhile, if you want to support my project, help me grow this thing, go to iTunes and subscribe, share the content with your friends, leave a review or a comment, and follow me on Instagram. at DitaCult74 or on Facebook 74 once more. Let's go. Help me get this baby going.